So, welcome back. With this video, I would like to elaborate a little bit more on what we did last time with those rounded forms. So we start with the volume of the head, just as a way of going back over all the step. The volume of the rib cage, the volume of the pelvis, the hips, and then we can introduce the legs, and then calves and lower leg, and so on. We kind of, hint at the pose, right? Thinking all the time, how big is this? This is 1, using the typical proportion. This will fit from here, to the end of the pelvis, 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, pretty good. So I'm happy with that. I lowered this a little bit, right? And then that's a pubic bone, which is the midpoint, just above the genital. I can take that measure, double it down, and then add a little bit to it, because typically the lower half from here to here, from the pubic bone to the heel, not to the tip of the toes, to the heel, is about this measurement from the pubic bone to the head, but often a little bit bigger. So then I can block in the volumes of the arms. The arm gets to the waist, the upper arm gets to the waist level, the lower arm gets to the level of the genitals, and the hand almost about halfway down that thigh, okay? So now this, I can imagine if I lift the arm like this, waist level, right? This should be shorter than this. So the forearm should be shorter than the upper arm, and the hand is about a little bit shorter than the head, okay? That measurement should be a little bit smaller than the head. So once I have this ghost image like this, right, I can start maybe developing it a little bit more in terms of smaller and smaller volumes, right? So that's the head, okay? That's fine. Volume of the head, halfway more or less where I have the eyes, 2/3 down the nose. Think of the neck as a cylinder, a volume that is over an ovoidal form here like this, right? The deltoid, delta in Greek means triangle. I have been told by my Greek students. So kind of triangular form, arm as a cylinder, forearm as something that develops at first as a conical section and then becomes a 2x4, right? And the hand. So pectoralis, the line of the pectoralis, the lower margin of the pectoralis is about 1 head down, more or less, a little bit lower than that, right? Depends. And then in this case, you see I'm depicting the proportion of the woman. So you want to have the rib cage a little bit narrower typically than the width of the hips. They tend to be a little bit wider than the width of the rib cage. Instead, in men, it's going to be the same width. Sternum, divide now this forming here, the axial skeleton, so head, rib cage, and pelvis, axial skeleton, with the median line that is coming from sternum, the linea alba, and the linea alba all the way down to the pubic bone. So now what I can do, after I block in, say, arms, right, and hands, I can start adding more specific volume. For example, in here, in this area here, I will have the volume of the pectoralis, like this, right? They can be more or less developed, clearly, right? The volume here just above the umbilicus here. So the umbilicus typically is 3 heads down. 1, 2, 3, all right? The umbilicus is about 3 heads down. So just above the umbilicus, I have the volume of the abs. Below that, I have the volume still of the abs, but the lower portion of the abdomen. So I have now a forming here, see that, right? Another forming here. Next to it here, the rib cage, right? But here, where the more or less at the level of the umbilicus, out here, I have the widening of the hips, and here I have the volume of the obliques, right? So you start seeing how I can start putting in all these volumes, 1, 2, the pubic area here, another smaller volume, the leg a little bit higher here. So I add the forms that make my puppet gradually more and more organic. volume of the thigh. So the volume of the thigh will be divided in two portions, right? Two big portions. One is the quadricep, actually the thigh, the whole thigh, right? And then from here, I can divide the thigh in two segments diagonally. This one become the adductors, and this become the quadricep. Below, so now I start seeing, see these volumes in here, specific volumes, right, here. And then below that here, I have the knee that connects. Basically, it's almost at the joint between the thigh and the lower leg. Below here, I have, so in this length, the total length of the leg, I have now the calves here, and then below the calves, the conical tapering of the calf, because this upper portion is going to be muscle, so you're going to have a thicker volume, right? But as I move past more or less the middle of the total length of the leg, these form will taper down because they will become tendon and will move down to the feet, right? So now in here, I don't see the leg, so that's fine, you know. I mean, I don't see the whole leg, so I can kind of leave it as just a background form. And then, but below here, I'm going to see now the lower leg developing with the calves, the same thing, the tapering, conical tapering of the lower leg and the feet, right? So, try this now. Try starting with, again, these little volumes, right? Head, torso, and pelvis. And you can also start getting them at specific angles, right? 1, 2, and 3 maybe, right? Go the angle of the axial skeleton, right? Find the angle of the axial skeleton. And then within these volume, right? These are the dominant volume, let's say. Decide if you want the rib cage to be a man's rib cage or a woman's rib cage, and then you're going to make the hips wider or narrower, depending, right, on the sex. And then within this forming here, you will block in the specific volume. So above the umbilicus, the abs, below the umbilicus, the lower portion of the abs, on this side, the obliques, right? On the obliques, and then the leg. The beginning of the leg is about halfway between the iliac spines, right, and the pubic bone. So, and that will create a little bit of a, imagine those fishing boots, right, that are cut like this to the top. Same shape. The iliac spine are these bony landmarks that we have on the side here of the pelvis, just a little bit below the umbilicus, right? So try with these big forms now and see what happens, and think in terms of form, right? Form and not shape, meaning the three-dimensionality. You want to figure out the three-dimensionality of these specific volume. From here, I could eventually find more and more and more smaller and smaller forms, right? But actually, we need the breast, right? So, and then next time I'm gonna show you just one video just for the breast. But the breast is gonna be one here, right, and one here, and then this forming here is going to be differentiated from the pectoralis, and then the breast is going to be over the pectoralis. So now I have all these forms in here, right, that are the main dominant forms of the figure. But first you want to start with 1, 2, and 3, because these are the dominant form of the figure. After this, you can attach the legs and the arms. Make sense? Because these are going to be influenced by that. This is the boss, and these are the helpers, right? Okay. Goodbye. So if you like the movies, you will love the book, right? So this is my book, Basic Human Anatomy, Roberto Osti. an essential guide for artists, and the publisher is Monacelli, the Monacelli Press, Monacelli Studio actually, and it's a complete course in anatomy, from the stereometric, these are my sketchbooks, from the stereometric approach to the figure, the puppet, a method that developed during the Renaissance, to gradually more and more lifelike figures, the proportion, the basic proportions, how to schematize the figure, how to render it synthetic, how to quickly take the measurements, various methods of measuring and drawing, and movement, light and shadows, to eventually, look how Halloween this is, right? To eventually, also some example on various techniques of drawing, to skeleton, detailed skeleton, structural skeleton, the organic skeleton, and all the details. So this portion is about really just plain anatomy, but there's also drawing techniques, flows, rhythms of the body, charts, detailed charts that you can also use for a crochet, then colored charts that makes it easier to see the different muscles. Then sketching, exercises, the head, various exercises to master the form of the head, the light on the head, details of facial proportions, muscles. Again, more at the end of each chapter there are a few exercises and drawings. There is also hands and feet. I got plenty of hands in here. Let me see, hands in various positions, and the feet, and then drawing techniques, how to this is the basics of drawing, of the light on the form, and so on. So you can find this book on Amazon, and it's going to be a good complement for the videos that I'm proposing you. Okay, bye bye.